Ambassador Riley Collins stepped out of the sleek shuttle and into the sprawling heart of the Galactic Council's diplomatic station. Her heart raced as her boots clicked against the smooth, obsidian floors. The sheer size of the chamber took her breath away. Towering above her, the ceiling was an ever-shifting mosaic of alien constellations, casting a faint glow over the assembly of delegates from countless star systems. As Earth's first representative, she was a lone human in a sea of exotic creatures, each more alien than the last. A hush fell over the crowd. Eyes, some glowing, others compound, fixed on her. Riley felt the weight of 1,000 expectations press against her chest, but she forced herself to walk confidently toward her seat at the circular council table. At its center, a holographic display flickered, projecting Earth alongside more resource-rich planets. The silence broke when General Vocara, a towering, reptilian figure from the Vaxari Empire, leaned forward, his scaled hand tapping the table impatiently. His voice was a deep, rumbling growl, dripping with contempt. "So, the humans finally send a representative," he sneered, his vertical pupils narrowing. "Tell me, Ambassador Collins, what do you bring to this council that we cannot already find in abundance?" Riley's stomach tightened, but she met his gaze without flinching. "Earth may not possess the rare minerals of Krylon or the energy reserves of Teshara, but we bring something invaluable, our creativity and culture." Her voice was steady, though her palms were slick with sweat. Vocara's sharp-toothed grin widened. "Culture?" he echoed, the word dripping with mockery. "Do you believe that will suffice as tribute? This council demands tangible assets. Your creativity cannot fuel ships or forge weapons." Riley took a breath, her mind racing. She knew Earth couldn't compete with the other species in terms of raw resources. Humanity was still recovering from decades of internal conflict, and their technological prowess, though formidable, paled in comparison to some of the more advanced civilizations here. But there was one thing Earth had that no other species could replicate. "We offer more than just resources, General. What we bring to the table is far more visceral. Earth's cuisine," she said, carefully enunciating each word. "Our food is unlike anything the galaxy has ever tasted." A ripple of murmurs spread through the council chamber. Some delegates exchanged confused glances, while others leaned in, intrigued. Riley seized the moment. "We invite the council to experience our culture through the very thing that has sustained us through millennia, our diverse culinary history. From the sweetness of honey to the intensity of our spices, Earth's food represents more than sustenance. It's tradition, survival, and creativity on a plate." Vocara's laughter rang out, echoing through the chamber. "Food? You expect to join this council by offering food?" Riley's lips tightened, but she stood firm. "Yes. And I guarantee, once you've tasted what we have to offer, you'll understand that Earth's contributions are far more valuable than you think." From across the table, Sheila, the Valenian diplomat, raised a slender hand, her blue skin shimmering under the holographic light. "Let her speak," she said, her voice soft but commanding. "I, for one, am curious. Earth's history is filled with ingenuity. Perhaps their ambassador has a point." Riley shot her a grateful look. Sheila had been the only one who had shown her kindness since her arrival, and Riley was determined not to let her down. General Vocara leaned back, folding his arms across his massive chest. "Very well, Ambassador. You have until the end of this summit to prove that your food is worthy of this council's respect. Fail, and Earth's place here will be forfeit." Riley exhaled quietly, knowing that her gamble had bought her time, but the stakes had never been higher. If she failed, Earth would remain isolated, its voice lost in the vastness of the galaxy. As she left the chamber, her mind raced with plans. She had a banquet to prepare, one that could decide Earth's future among the stars. Riley paced the dimly lit corridors of the diplomatic station's kitchens, her mind spinning with 1,000 details. The air was thick with the aromas of simmering spices, roasting meats, and the unfamiliar hum of alien appliances. Every step she took echoed in the metal-clad halls, but the rhythmic clatter of utensils and distant hissing of steam filled the space with urgency. "Ambassador, we have a problem." She turned to see Mateo, her head chef, his brow furrowed with a mix of frustration and worry. The man was tall, with a build more suited to a soldier than a chef, but his hands worked culinary miracles. Right now, though, his usually steady demeanor was cracking. "What is it?" Riley asked, a sinking feeling settling in her chest. They couldn't afford any mistakes. Not tonight. Matteo wiped his hands on his apron, glancing over his shoulder at the chaos behind him. "The hanal fruit, they've gone sour. Without them, our dessert is ruined. We can't pull this off without it. The tang was supposed to balance the sweetness of the cream." Riley felt her pulse quicken. The hanal fruit had been a key element in their closing dish, meant to wow the council with an earth twist on an intergalactic delicacy. Without it, the meal would fall flat, and they'd lose the one shot they had to prove Earth's worth. She inhaled deeply, fighting to keep her voice steady. "All right, we improvise. What's our next best option?" Matteo's eyes flickered with uncertainty, but he didn't waver. "There's a Terran alternative. Mango. It's not perfect, but the flavor is bold, and it might surprise them." Riley nodded, adrenaline pushing her forward. "Do it. The council has never tasted mango. They want to be surprised. Let's give them something unexpected." As Matteo barked orders to the kitchen staff, Riley turned to the main event, the feast itself. Each course had been meticulously planned, designed to showcase not just the richness of Earth's culinary traditions, but its diversity, adaptability, and innovation. It wasn't just a meal, it was a statement. Just as she was about to return to the dining chamber, Sheila, the Valenian diplomat who had spoken up earlier, appeared in the doorway. Her ethereal blue skin shimmered faintly in the warm light of the kitchen, her expression unreadable. "Ambassador Collins," she said softly, her voice a melodic whisper. "The council awaits. They're skeptical, but intrigued. Are you ready?" Riley exhaled slowly, forcing a confident smile. "More than ready. They'll never forget this meal." Sheila's eyes twinkled with amusement, but there was an undercurrent of caution in her tone. "Be careful. Vocara and his supporters, they won't make this easy. Your food may impress them, but they'll find other ways to undermine you." Riley met her gaze with quiet resolve. "Let them try. Earth doesn't give up so easily." Together, they walked through the long corridor leading to the grand dining hall. The doors slid open with a hiss, revealing the imposing table where the Galactic Council's elite waited. The delegates shifted in their seats, their various features, tentacles, horns, wings, making the scene look like something out of a dream. Or a nightmare. General Vocara was already sneering. "I hope this is worth the wait, Ambassador. I'm not sure how much longer we can humor Earth's distractions." Riley ignored the jibe and stood tall. "Tonight you'll experience a taste of humanity. Each dish represents not just our flavors, but our resilience, creativity, and the spirit of Earth. We may not have the most resources, but we know how to make the most of what we have." The first course arrived, delicate slivers of smoked salmon, caught from Earth's coldest waters, served with vibrant herbs native to their planet. As the delegates took their first bites, Riley watched for their reactions. Vocara chewed slowly, his expression unreadable, while others murmured quietly to one another. The richness of the flavors seemed to surprise them. Next came a heartier dish, a stew simmered with spices, its aroma filling the air. It was familiar to humans, a dish passed down through generations, but here, on an alien world, it was a statement of Earth's heritage. The delegates began to eat in earnest now, their initial skepticism giving way to curiosity. As the meal progressed, Riley's confidence grew. She saw the shift in their faces, eyes widening, hesitant smiles breaking out. Even Vocara seemed less hostile, though he remained silent, his eyes narrowing with each new course. Finally, the dessert arrived, the mango-laden dish that had replaced the hanal fruit. Riley watched as the council members hesitated, unsure of what to expect. Then they took their first bite, and the tension in the room shifted. Murmurs turned to nods of approval, and even Vocara's lips curled slightly upward. Sheila leaned in, her voice barely audible. "You've done it. But Riley knew better than to relax. This was just the beginning. As the plates were cleared and the council's murmurs grew louder, she braced herself for whatever came next. General Vocara wouldn't concede easily, and Earth's future was still on the line. Riley's heart raced as the council members finished their dessert, the room filled with the low hum of conversation. The transformation was subtle but undeniable. Skepticism had given way to curiosity. Eyes that had once looked at her with suspicion now held a glimmer of interest. Even Vocara, the towering brute of a general, seemed less hostile, though his gaze remained sharp, like a predator waiting for the right moment to strike. But Riley knew better than to believe the battle was won. This was only the beginning. The real fight lay not in winning their approval through food, but in what would come next, the trial of Earth's true worth as an ally or adversary. The quiet discussions among the council members were interrupted by a low rumble. Vocara stood, his chair scraping against the floor, and the room fell silent. His golden eyes scanned the room, eventually locking onto Riley with cold calculation. "Impressive," he said, his voice a deep, resonant growl. "Earth's cuisine is adequate." He paused, as if testing the weight of his words. "But meals and words alone will not decide Earth's place among the stars." Riley felt the room tighten, the weight of Vocara's presence pulling the focus onto him. She forced herself to maintain eye contact, refusing to be intimidated. "We understand that, General," she replied, her tone calm but firm. "But this meal wasn't about proving our superiority. It was about showing you what Earth can offer. There's more to us than war and conflict." Vocara let out a dry chuckle, stepping closer to her. "You think peace will save you? You think we'll simply welcome you into our ranks because you know how to cook a decent meal?" His lip curled. "The galaxy is ruled by power, Ambassador, not sentiment." Riley didn't flinch. She had expected this. "We understand power, General. We're not naive. But Earth's strength isn't just in brute force. We adapt. We innovate. We survive." Vocara raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "Survival isn't enough. You'll need more than that if you want to prove Earth's place here." A voice from the far end of the table cut through the tension. Sheila, the Valenian diplomat, stood gracefully, her serene presence a stark contrast to Vocara's aggression. "Perhaps there is a way for Earth to demonstrate this strength," she suggested, her tone measured. "A challenge, perhaps?" Riley turned to her, cautious but intrigued. "What kind of challenge?" Sheila's silver eyes gleamed with an idea forming. "A test of resilience, intellect, and adaptability, qualities you claim define your people. It would allow the Council to see firsthand whether Earth is worthy of standing alongside the other galactic powers." Vocara snorted, his arms crossing over his massive chest. "And who would judge this so-called test?" "You." His tone dripped with disdain, though Sheila remained unbothered. "The Council would," Sheila replied, her voice calm. "It is only fair that all voices are heard in this decision." Vocara's gaze flicked toward the other council members, his annoyance clear. For a moment, the room was silent, tension hanging thick in the air as the delegates exchanged glances. Finally, Vocara's lips twisted into a sneer. "Very well," he growled. "Let the humans face a challenge. But know this, Ambassador, this is no game. You fail, and Earth will be left to fend for itself." Riley's pulse quickened. This was the moment she had feared, and hoped for. A chance to prove Earth's worth, but also a gamble with everything on the line. She straightened her shoulders, steeling herself for whatever came next. "We accept," she said, her voice unwavering. A murmur rippled through the council, but before anyone could say more, Vocara raised a hand. "Then it's decided. The challenge will take place in 2 standard cycles. You'll be briefed on the parameters tomorrow." He glanced down at her, a dangerous glint in his eye. "I hope your people are ready, Ambassador. The galaxy is not kind to the weak." With that, Vocara turned and strode out of the room, his heavy footfalls echoing through the chamber. One by one, the other council members began to rise, following him out, their expressions a mix of curiosity and doubt. Sheila lingered, her delicate features softened by a small smile as she approached Riley. "You handled that well," she said quietly. "But be cautious. Vocara will do everything in his power to make sure this challenge is impossible for you." Riley sighed, her mind already racing with the possibilities of what they'd face. "I figured as much." Sheila's smile faded slightly. "There are some among the Council who support Earth's inclusion. But many more, like Vocara, will look for any excuse to discredit you. Be prepared for sabotage, deceit, and worse." Riley nodded, her expression hardening. "We'll be ready. Earth's never back down from a fight." Sheila studied her for a moment, then nodded. "I believe you." With a final glance at the now empty room, she turned and left, leaving Riley alone with her thoughts. As the doors closed behind her, Riley allowed herself a moment to breathe. The weight of what she had agreed to pressed heavily on her shoulders, but she couldn't afford to falter. Earth's future was on the line, and failure wasn't an option. The quiet hum of the now deserted dining hall echoed in her ears, and she clenched her fists, determination flooding her veins. Whatever this challenge was, she would face it head on. And Earth would rise. Riley awoke before dawn, the soft hum of the starship's engines a constant reminder of her responsibilities. The walls of her quarters glimmered with soft blue lights, illuminating the small space where she had spent countless hours preparing for the challenge ahead. Her heart beat steadily, a quiet drum urging her to action. Today was the day she would meet the other delegates, and with it, the first step toward proving Earth's worth. After a quick shower, Riley dressed in a fitted jumpsuit that showcased the insignia of Earth, a simple blue globe encircled by a silver ring. It was a reminder of her mission, to unite the divided factions of humanity and present them as a singular, formidable force among the stars. She took a moment to inspect her reflection in the polished metal of the ship's walls, a surge of determination coursing through her. This was not just about her. It was for every human who had ever dared to dream beyond their pale blue dot. Stepping out of her quarters, she made her way toward the main conference room, the air thick with anticipation. The corridors were alive with activity, diplomats and their aides buzzing like anxious bees preparing for the day's gathering. As she approached the large, circular chamber, she caught sight of her aide, Marco, a tall man with tousled hair and an ever-present smile. His relaxed demeanor contrasted sharply with the tension in the air. "Ready for this?" Marco asked, leaning casually against the wall. His blue eyes sparkled with a mix of excitement and concern. Riley took a deep breath, steeling herself. "I have to be. We can't afford any slip-ups." Marco nodded, his expression turning serious. "Just remember why you're here. You're not just representing yourself, you're representing Earth. Stay focused, and don't let Vocara intimidate you." She appreciated his support, even if she could feel the weight of the challenge looming ahead. "Thanks, Marco. Let's do this." As they entered the conference room, the atmosphere shifted. The grand circular table was surrounded by delegates from various alien species, each one unique in appearance, from the scaled, reptilian Zafari to the ethereal, luminous figures of the astrolites. Every seat held a representative of a race steeped in history and power, and Riley felt small, a solitary human in a sea of otherworldly beings. "Ah, the Earth Ambassador graces us with her presence." Vocara's booming voice cut through the chatter as he leaned back in his seat, a mocking grin plastered across his face. "I hope you've come prepared. I trust you've been practicing your survival skills?" Riley swallowed her irritation, reminding herself of Marco's advice. "I'm ready, General," she replied, her voice steady. "Let's begin." Sheila, seated beside Vocara, nodded gracefully. "Welcome, Ambassador. Today is not only a chance for you to demonstrate Earth's capabilities but also for us to engage in a dialogue about mutual interests." Her tone was diplomatic, but her eyes sparkled with a glimmer of curiosity. "We are eager to learn what your people bring to the table." Vocara leaned forward, a predatory glint in his eyes. "And I, for one, am eager to see how you fare in the test. Let the games begin." His laughter echoed through the room, drawing wary glances from the other delegates. As the discussions unfolded, Riley felt the tension build. The Council outlined the challenge, a series of tests designed to assess Earth's adaptability, intelligence, and resilience. The first task would involve a simulated crisis, one where they'd need to devise a solution within a limited time. The subsequent tests would grow increasingly difficult, forcing them to think creatively under pressure. Your first task will take place in the simulation chamber, Sheila explained, her voice calm and composed. It will test your strategic thinking and ability to coordinate a team under stress. We expect nothing less than excellence from you. Riley nodded, taking a moment to absorb the information. What kind of crisis are we talking about? Volcara smirked. That's for you to find out. The element of surprise is essential in any challenge. After a brief pause, Sheila continued. You will have 24 hours to prepare. Use this time wisely. We will reconvene tomorrow for the simulation. As the meeting concluded, Riley felt the weight of their gazes upon her. It was clear that their approval was anything but guaranteed. The stakes were higher than she had imagined, and every moment counted. Once they left the conference room, she turned to Marco, a sense of urgency bubbling inside her. We need to gather a team, she said, her voice low but intense. I can't do this alone. Marco nodded, already brainstorming. Who do you want on your team? We need the best and brightest. Scientists, strategists, anyone with practical experience in crisis management. Riley considered her options. Let's start with Dr. Emery. She's a leading expert in environmental science and has experience with disaster management. Then there's Darnell, a former military strategist. If anyone knows how to adapt under pressure, it's him. Good choices, Marco replied. I'll track them down. What about the others? We need a diverse skill set. Riley nodded, her mind racing. We'll need someone with technological expertise, maybe a Daira from the engineering department. And let's not forget communications. We need to keep everyone informed during the simulation. That would be Helen. She has a knack for crisis communication. As they walked through the corridors, Riley felt a renewed sense of purpose. The challenge ahead loomed like a storm, but she had her team and a plan. The Council might underestimate Earth, but they were about to witness humanity's tenacity and resourcefulness firsthand. They reached her quarters, where Riley immediately began drafting a plan. She needed to make the most of the next 24 hours, to ensure they were ready for whatever Volcara and the Council had in store for them. Suddenly, the ship's intercom crackled to life, breaking her concentration. Ambassador Riley, please report to the command deck. There's an urgent message from Earth. Riley exchanged a concerned glance with Marco before rushing out the door. What do you think it could be? She asked. I don't know, but it can't be good, Marco replied, a frown creasing his brow. As they arrived at the command deck, the atmosphere was tense. The crew was already gathered around the main console, eyes glued to the flickering screen that displayed a feed from Earth. Riley's stomach sank as she took in the images of chaos, natural disasters, civil unrest, and a rapidly deteriorating environment. General, what's happening? She demanded, her heart racing. The commander turned to her, his expression grave. We've lost contact with several regions on Earth. We believe it's related to the tensions brewing in the wake of your mission here. The weight of the world pressed down on Riley. This was more than a challenge. It was a fight for survival, not just for her mission but for her planet. Prepare a response team, she ordered, her voice steadier than she felt. We need to stabilize the situation back home. This can't wait. Marco met her gaze, a mixture of fear and determination reflected in his eyes. What do you need me to do? Help me gather the team. We need to face this crisis together. If Earth is going to stand as an equal among the stars, we need to prove it starts at home. As the crew scrambled into action, Riley felt the pulse of urgency drive her forward. The simulation challenge loomed ahead, but now the stakes were even higher. She would not only fight for Earth's place in the galaxy, she would fight to save it.